Today we're going to learn about production possibility curves. In economics, it is important to note how exactly can we produce two goods and services to see exactly how many resources we're using for one good and how many resources we're using for another good. It's sort of like a comparison. And to create that comparison on how to make that decision, firms, governments, individuals, we can all use production possibility curves for that decision making. So what is a production possibility curve? It is sometimes also called a production possibility frontier, or it's also sometimes called an opportunity cost curve because it shows us opportunity cost, as we will see shortly. But essentially, a production possibility curve basically shows you all the different combinations of any two goods or services that an economy can produce when they use all of their resources in the most efficient manner, right? And these two keywords are very, very important, as we will see shortly. This is how you draw a production possibility curve. On one of the axes, you draw one of the good that you're going to represent, and on another axis, you draw another good that you're going to represent. Usually, this is the most common example of a production possibility curve where you are assuming that an economy uses all of their resources to either produce capital goods or consumer goods. And hence, when they use all the resources, for example, if the economy uses all the resources on consumer goods, they can produce 100 consumer goods. And if they use all the resources into making capital goods, they can produce 100 capital goods, right? And all these points on the graph essentially show you the combination of consumer goods and capital goods that they can produce. So if we call this point X, we can see that at point X, you can produce 90 consumer goods and 50 capital goods. And if you call this point Y, then you can see you can produce 90 capital goods and 50 consumer goods if you use all of your resources in the most efficient manner. To understand exactly why I said that on the production possibility curve, which is this blue line right here, the blue curve right here, all of the points have all resources used up in the most efficient manner. As you can see, point A, you're producing only 30 units of capital goods and 30 units of consumer goods, right? But you can clearly see that if you move from point A to point B, you can produce more of both of the goods, right? You can produce 40 capital goods and 50 consumer goods. And this is because in point A, you're using less of your resources than you would have used in point B. For instance, in point A, you probably are experiencing unemployment, right? Which means a significant part of your labor force is idle. You're not using your labor, or you're not using your machineries that you have. But in point B, you're using more of your machineries that you have, more of your labor that you have. So in point A and in point B, similarly, you're not using all your resources, but at least in point B, you're using more resources than you are using in point A. What would happen if you move from point B to point X, right? This would essentially suggest that you are using all of your resources in the most efficient manner. You are not keeping anything idle, you don't have any unemployment, and you are using all of your resources. And that is exactly what every point on the production possibility curve tells us, that you are using all of your resources in the most efficient manner. There is maximum efficiency and maximum productivity. What about point Y? Can you produce 85 consumer goods and 90 capital goods at the same time? The answer is no. And this is because at this point, it becomes unattainable for you. You do not have enough resources to make that combination of goods and services that you want. You cannot make 85 consumer goods and also make 90 capital goods at the same time. You simply do not have the amount of resources required to do that. What is very interesting in a production possibility curve is you can show a very interesting idea by using the production possibility curve. Let's find another point on the production possibility curve, okay? For example, this is point C. Now, if you carefully look, if you move from point X to point C, you're actually not becoming inefficient at all. You're still staying on the production possibility curve, right? But what is happening to your combination of goods and services? As you notice, when you move from point X to point C, let's say this is 60 and let's say this is 80. You are moving away from 90 consumer goods to 60 consumer goods, right? So what is happening to your consumer goods? You are having a 30 units of decrease in consumer goods. But what is happening to your capital goods? As you can see, you are having a 20 unit increase of your capital goods from point X to point C. And this is exactly how you are showing opportunity cost by using the production possibility curve. If you want to use more of your resources making capital goods, then you have to take away some of the resources that you were using to make consumer goods. And hence, the production of your consumer goods are decreasing and the production of your capital goods are increasing. And that is why production possibility curve is a very good illustration of opportunity cost, and it's also sometimes called the opportunity cost curve. Now, we have seen how production possibility curve can show us opportunity cost, but it's also important to note that the shape of the production possibility curve can tell us exactly how the opportunity cost changes as you shift from one particular good to another. For example, as we can see in this particular curve, if we say this is production possibility curve A, this shows us constant opportunity cost. For example, if you illustrate by drawing 2 points on the curve, for example, X and Y, you will see for each and every unit of A that you're giving up, you're receiving the same amount of unit B more. And that is why you are saying that this curve has a constant opportunity cost. But in retrospect, in this production possibility curve B, this actually shows us increasing opportunity cost. As you will see that more of good A will be required to get the same amount to increase the same amount of good B for this particular curve. And similarly, not similarly, but exactly in the opposite manner, this curve, production possibility curve C, shows us decreasing opportunity cost. As you will see that more of good A will give us increasingly more good B as you move from one position to another. We can also use production possibility curve. Let me just jot it down for you. This is increasing and this is decreasing opportunity cost. We can also use production possibility curve to, for instance, show how the economy is growing. If you consider the black production possibility curve as the initial production possibility curve, if the curve shifts to the right, which is the red production possibility curve, PPC2, then you can say that the economy has gone through an economic growth. It's very intuitive. It's because you now have more resources. As you can see, you can produce more. You can reach the unattainable positions that we could not reach before, which means that your economy is actually growing. You now have more labor, you now have more resources. You probably found a new oil reserve. In the opposite manner, if the curve shifts to the left and it goes to, for instance, PPC3, it means that your economy has degraded. This can happen for a lot of reasons. Your economy could have gone through a recession, there could have been a huge natural disaster that has taken down so many of your resources, and now you cannot produce as much as you could have produced before, and now you can produce much less.